When you see a red light, hopefully you stop. When you see a heart emoji, hopefully you feel something. And when you see a brand logo, you know what it means even before you read the name. These symbols shape how we think, feel, and connect, but none of them mean anything on their own. Their meaning comes from within us. That, my friends, is the world of semiotics, the study of signs, symbols, and how we create meaning. Welcome back to Communication Campus. I'm your host, Dr. Malynnda Stewart, and today we are exploring semiotics, one of the most foundational theories in the study of communication and of culture. Now, semiotics helps us understand how meaning is not just found in messages. It's made through interpretation, context, and culture. So the term semiotics comes from the Greek word semeion, meaning sign. And in the study of signs, we are able to understand how we create meaning. It's not just the words, but the images, sounds, objects, and behaviors. So think of semiotics as the science of meaning making. Every time we interpret something, a color, a logo, a tone of voice, we're decoding signs. Now, one of the founding figures of semiotics defined that the sign has two parts. The first is the signifier, and this is the form in which it takes. So this is going to be the sound or the actual image. And then we have the signified, which is the concept it represents. Together, they form the sign. But their relationship is pretty arbitrary. There's no natural reason that the word tree means tree, or that dog means dog. That all happens because we've agreed as a culture that that's what that thing is. Whenever I teach this in class, I often have a green marker. And it became a green marker and it had to stay a green marker because of what I'm going to say next. And I decided that as our culture of the class, we could decide that this green marker would be forever known as a pickle. And that if our culture decided that this thing was going to be a pickle, and for right now I have a green ball, so we'll just say that this green ball is now known as a pickle. If we all agreed that this was now a pickle, we've changed what the signifier and the signified are. And as long as we all agree that this is now a pickle, well, there we go. This is a pickle. And that's really what everything is. It's all made up. But what happens is that we all agree on it as a culture, and therefore it has that meaning. So this means that meaning isn't fixed. It's constructed through social agreement. So language is a system of relationships between signs and not nearly a mirror of reality. I hope you're bouncing the pickle around in your brain and that this is making sense. It's a little heady to think about what is reality and based on these signs and these signifiers. I get it. Now, around the same time, there was another philosopher who was thinking about these things, and Charles Peirce is his name, and he developed his own model describing three types of signs. And he identifies icons, index, and symbols. Now, icons resemble what it represents. So, a photograph, an emoji, a map, they are things that actually represent. So, for example, when we think about icons, these are things that are going to resemble what they represent. So, if I have a drawing or a picture of a dog, that represents a dog. And I know what that actually means because that image represents what it is. It looks like what we know it to be true. Then we have index, which is when we show evidence or connection. So, for example, when we see smoke, that is an index of fire. A tear can be an index of sadness. Now, when it comes to symbols, this has meaning only through convention. So, specifically, words, a flag, or a logo. And that meaning is going to be different depending on who you are. So, think about specific flags that we might see. And if it's a different country, your feelings and connection to that piece of fabric is going to have a different meaning depending on how you connect to it. What does that flag symbolize for you? Now, in Peirce's model, meaning really does depend on interpretation. And this is what he called the interpretant, which means that semiotics are so powerful because it's not just about the signs, it's about how we make sense of them, how we interpret what they mean based on our own experiences. Now, there's also another piece of this that thinks about how culture and meaning or cultural meaning actually take place. Now, there's another aspect of this that we need to think about, and this is cultural meaning. And in his book, Mythologies, Barthes argued that everyday things, advertisements, fashion, even food, carry a mythic meaning that reflects cultural values and identities. For example, a luxury car ad doesn't sell just transportation, it sells status. And a flag doesn't just symbolize a country, it represents loyalty and identity. So, this perspective shows us that meaning isn't neutral. It is shaped by power and ideology, and most importantly, culture. So, why does all of this matter today? Well, honestly, today we're seeing these images and symbols more and more than I think probably we have in a long time. From emojis to memes, semiotics is everywhere in digital culture. And every symbol we use online carries cultural baggage. Sometimes it's playful, sometimes it's political. And understanding semiotics helps us become critical interpreters. We don't just see what the message say, but we understand what they're doing. And it teaches us to ask things like, who created this meaning? What values does it actually reflect? And how does it influence the way that we see the world? There's a lot to unpack when it comes to semiotics. So if you're feeling like this is a bit of a heavy chapter, if you're feeling like, oh, there's just so much to consider, you are absolutely right. This is one of those theories that took me quite a bit of time to fully understand and fully unpack. So, as always, if you'd want me to break this down some more or talk about any of these philosophers and theorists a bit more in their perspectives, leave me a note in the comments and I will happily expand upon this in different ways. But for today, let's sum it up. Semiotics is the study of how we create meaning through signs and symbols. Saussure showed us that meaning is relational. Peirce revealed how we interpret the signs, and Barthes taught us that culture in itself communicates. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Communication Campus. In our next session, we are going to talk a little bit more about cultural studies and understanding how all of these things are shaped by culture. Until then, remember, communication isn't just what we say, it's in what our signs actually mean. Until next time, take care and